What's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR. Welcome to another episode of the People's Questions, where I answer all the questions that you guys are sending over the past week. We got a pretty extensive episode compared to last week's episode, so I think it's a good thing with even a good number of newbies. So it's nice to see that the reach of the People's Questions is growing. But before we get into you guys' question, I have a little bit of a shout out to give out to a Mr. Abel Zerion. I like what you're doing in the comments section. I'm impressed. And because of that, I'm going to answer your question first. And you want to know, what are my thoughts on the whole 69-page document that shows how awful Channel Awesome is as a business? Well, I have not seen the 69-page document, but I have pretty much heard about it from a few other individuals. And if that is true about how things have been running on that channel or website, I think it's absolutely horrible. A lot of really prominent people that I have been watching on that channel for a number of years are leaving, so it must be really, really, really bad. Most recently, I saw that Angry Joe himself was leaving. I'm not sure what the Angry Video Game Nerd is going to do. I'm not sure if he's already left, or if he plans on doing it. But, yeah, I'm not really sure if this, if Channel Awesome is going to bounce back from this. It looked pretty damning. So yeah, I guess it's just an example of, you know, things aren't as awesome as some people once believed. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen with them. Next question comes from Russell Farmer. You want to know, what are my top 5 favorite Star Wars characters from Legends? Okay, here they are in some sort of order. Number 1, it is Legends Luke Skywalker. I don't know who the hell Disney put in The Last Jedi, but that damn sure was not Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker I know and respected after Return of the Jedi was definitely Legends and Grand Master Luke Skywalker. That guy was awesome. Next is Kyle Katarn, who is probably the one character I would want as my own Jedi Master. Next is Darth Revan, followed by Darth Krayt, and then followed by Darth Talon. Next question comes from Will Williams, and you wanted to know, which 5 death battles do I disagree with the most? Okay, here are the 5. I disagree with the outcome for Link versus Cloud, then Kirby versus Boo, then, hated this one, Gara versus Toph, that was ridiculous, Thor versus Wonder Woman for obvious reasons, and then obviously Sephiroth versus Virgil. Did a whole 40+ minute video on that, which has gotten a good amount of attention. Next question comes from Goku Son, and you want us to know, who do I think would win between MCU's Doctor Strange versus CW Flash? Well, I stopped watching The Flash after season 3, but I think the question is, could CW's Flash hit or knock out Doctor Strange before he could cast an incantation? I think the answer is yes. That's really how you beat Doctor Strange. You don't necessarily have to avoid his magic or avoid his attacks. You simply need to be able to hit him before he could cast a spell. And I'm not sure if Doctor Strange's reaction time is fast enough to dodge the Flash. So I would say probably the Flash would win. Next question comes from the Immortal Super Being. You want to know, if Sephiroth entered the Star Wars universe and got challenged to a battle to death by Darth Krayt, who would win in my opinion? I think Darth Krayt would win simply because I don't really think Sephiroth has any sort of defense against the Force. Sephiroth is undoubtedly powerful with his use of materia, and his skills as a swordsman are almost unrivaled. But I just think that Krayt has enough creativity, and him being a Nine-Man practitioner, he has been able to integrate his lightsaber skills with his Force powers significantly more than Sephiroth has been able to integrate his swordsmanship with his use of magic, which he has specifically kept them apart. He either sticks with mostly using his sword, but only very rarely uses his magic. So even if he started using his more powerful magic, he's probably not as skilled at using them as Krayt is with his Force powers. And I certainly think there's just a number of Force powers I don't think Sephiroth could really defend against. So I would certainly say that Darth Krayt would probably win. Next question comes from Yoda Date. You want to know, what class would I pick in Final Fantasy universe and who's my party? I would pick a warrior, for obvious reasons. My party. I actually had to think about this for a little bit, and I was wondering what type of party did you want, because you didn't say exactly what. And most parties in Final Fantasy have had 4 characters, so I'm going to pick 4 characters. My party would be Cloud, Titus, Terra, and Yuna. I would pick those four. Obviously, I would pick Cloud because I think he's simply super brute force. I'll pick Titus because I need a speed fencer. I need Terra because I want a lot of magic on my side. And I'll pick Yuna because in case we run into any trouble, just like in Final Fantasy X, she can bring out the big guns when we need it. So that will be my party. Next question comes from Hunter Burrows, and the first question is, how much hate did I get from my April Fool's Day video? I actually didn't get much hate at all. Some people could tell right from the previous video that this was going to be a really just April Fool's Day video. Some people thought it was serious and were a little bit upset, but it wasn't really all that bad. Next question comes from the second Hunter Bros, and you want to know, how would I feel if Death Battle contacted me to help do research on one of their fighters that I've done a huge amount of research on? I don't think they ever would. Because, I mean, they seem pretty confident. I mean, they have a whole team working for them. And as I stated before, they're more into being entertaining rather than being informative. They very rarely like to make that a big point that they want to get across. But if by some crazy miracle they did decide, I wouldn't mind helping them out. I mean, it would help give me a little bit more exposure to help my channel grow, and in exchange, I would help them, you know, get their information a little bit more clear. So it would just be a standard agreement between two different parties. Next question comes from Shadow Wolf. You want to know, if Snake gets killed by a rookie soldier, how would I feel? Okay, this is okay. I find this one a little bit funny because sometimes I like to be a little bit of a smartass because let's just say I'm a man that likes to work with very specific details. So your question was, if Snake gets killed by a rookie soldier. Well, Shadow Wolf, you didn't say what Snake, and obviously Big Boss was the first Snake, and technically, officially, he was killed by a rookie agent by using a lighter and a can of hairspray, which I have extensively stated I hated that because it sounded dumb. I mean, this is the guy who took down the Shadow Hog, who took down the first number of Metal Gears, hell, built his own Metal Gears, and you're telling me after all of these decades of experience, he gets beaten by a rookie agent with a lighter and a can of hairspray. What the hell is a can of hairspray doing on a base on Zanzibar land? I don't know. So, I guess in the context of your question, there's your answer. Next question comes from Queen Viola. You want to know, considering how old Luke is, how much has he been through that he's seen? What's wrong with how he turned out? The problem is that we've seen Luke go, okay, number one, that was not Luke. A lot of people have openly confessed that the way he turned out in The Last Jedi was not consistent at all with his character. It doesn't make sense because from what we've seen him go through, that's nothing compared to what he had been through before, and we saw how he handled it. You can't expect me to believe for even a second that he would even consider killing his nephew when he had dark side tendencies, when he was able to convert his father, who had been a Darth Lord for over 20 years, who was way worse. So how in God's name do you get me to believe that? That is the biggest problem. And really, even Mark Hamill had problems with this. And it is clear that the reason they made this significant change is to serve Disney's agenda. They have no respect for these characters because these are characters that they themselves did not create. Now that they own the properties, they now have the right to turn these characters into what Disney needs rather than how the story needs them. And that's my biggest problem with Disney. It is clear that they want the entire Star Wars fan base to completely ignore Star Wars, George Lucas's Star Wars. That's what they've wanted. Heck, if they wanted to, I promise you, they would seriously want to consider making all of Star Wars before The Last Jedi non-canon. I would not be surprised that in a decade they say that, you know what, episodes 1 through 6 are not canon anymore. We're going to make our own new Star Wars continuity. I guarantee you that will probably be something they would want to do if they weren't afraid of the backlash. But that's my problem with how they portrayed Luke. It just does not make sense compared to the character we've now known, despite the fact that he'd been through much harder things. So it makes no sense. Next question comes from Virgil, the son of Sparta. You want to know, How would things turn out if Chris Redfield was evil and Wesker was a good guy? Well, then I think the opposite effects would happen. I think eventually Chris Redfield would be taken down by Wesker and maybe another Farmer Stars member party. Next question comes from Vlad Xavier. You want to know, I've never been into the Star Wars series and know next to nothing about it, and I'd like to know where I should start. Comics, movie, or TV show, or games? Well, obviously you should start with the movies. In what order you choose, it really depends on what significant moment. I mean, at this point, I'm sure you know what happens in Star Wars throughout the movies, so you could pick whatever order you want to start watching them. But if I had to say TV shows, I would definitely watch the Clone Wars. I guess you could watch Rebels if you want. Comic books, I would probably stick to Legends continuity because I don't like this new canon stuff. But obviously, if you want to start, you would start with the movies, where that's something you should pick, because you're going to experience it differently depending on where you start, but it's up to you. Next question comes from Cassidy J. Williams. You want to know, aside from The Rock, what other movies have I seen that the wrestlers in the starring role, supporting roles, or cameos? Well, John Cena's been in quite a lot of things recently, and I like him. I recently heard he's going to be the next Duke Nukem, which I find very, very funny because you have John Cena in Duke Nukem, and you had The Rock in Doom. All we need is someone to be in Wolfenstein, and like the holy trinity of the like classic 90s shooters would be complete. Let's see what else. I know Stone Cold's been in a couple of movies. I did happen to see I think one of his earlier films, The Condemned. I did see that one in theaters. I think there was a wrestler in Predator. I think that might have been Jake the Snake. I might be wrong on that. And I know that there was a wrestler who played Bane in Batman and Robin. I don't think he's alive anymore. So yeah, I've seen a good number of movies. Plus, I did recently go see Blockers, and I thought John Cena was actually pretty damn good in that film. So who knows what will happen in the future. Next question comes from one of the first newbies of the episode, going by the name of Venom Rules All, which I think is a pretty awesome name. And you want to know, is there a chance that we could get a... I want to keep this one a secret, but if you're watching this, Venom Rules All, I would actually be interested to use that character in a versus series. The question is finding a decent opponent, but you know, I had never considered that before. So yeah, I don't see why not. Next question comes from Black Lady. You want to know, is 2B from Nier Automata someone I think would be possible to use in my versus series? If not, why? It's not a matter of if I couldn't use 2B, because all the information is there. I could definitely analyze her in the format that I normally do. The question is finding an opponent. But since we can't really put her against anyone in her own video game, it would have to be a cross-up matchup. So if 2B was to be used, it would either have to be for a season finale video or season opener. And as it stands right now, I'm not even sure if I want to do a following season after this year. It just depends on how this season is, the response I get for this season. And so far it's been kind of in the middle. Next question comes from the second newbie, I believe, going by the name of Josh McCoy. I hope I said that right. The last name is a little bit hard. And you want to know, oh wait. Yeah, wait, you might not be a newbie. I think you're someone who's been here before. And you want to know, where do I get the information that Revan could be Anakin? Revan is your favorite Star Wars character, but I don't think he could be Anakin. Yes, Revan is superior with force power, but Anakin is an amazing duelist. Anakin is an amazing duelist, but he's also a one-dimensional duelist. The thing is that you kind of answer your own question. Revan is by far superior with his force powers, and that's usually enough. You have to understand that Darth Revan was skilled enough to take down Malak twice. The first time he cut the man's jaw off, and the second time he took him down by himself. And Malak at the time was considered to be one of the best duelists of the era, so he would definitely be in Anakin Skywalker's league in terms of skill level. And the problem is that he has a number of powers that Anakin has had consistent problems with, especially Force Lightning. Throughout his entire life, whether he was Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader, he's had consistent problems with Force Lightning. And this is something that Revan isn't expert in. So his skills with the lightsaber are at least good enough that he could take Anakin on. But once he starts falling on his force powers, he would just completely overwhelm Anakin. Anakin is the type of person that once he starts getting frustrated, he becomes more aggressive, but he starts making more mistakes, which is essentially how Obi-Wan Kenobi was able to beat Anakin, despite the fact that skill-wise, Anakin is a better lightsaber fighter than Obi-Wan. Everyone has openly admitted that, including Obi-Wan Kenobi himself. So if you were to go up against Revan, Revan would not be as overwhelmed as some people might think. Revan would definitely be able to hold off Anakin long enough to fall back on his force powers, and whatever force powers that Anakin uses are going to be very, very limited, and heck, Revan will probably be able to tank that, and then once he starts throwing at his own powers, Anakin would be overwhelmed. So that's why I think that Revan would absolutely take down Anakin. It would be a good fight, but he would still win. Next question comes from Santiago Scarpino. You want to know, is there any Final Fantasy Versus video I want to do, but I know I can't? There are a number of matches. Someone actually mentioned it in the comment section. There is a video I did involving 10 characters that I can't use. But there's a number of them that I would like to use, but I just can't. If you like, let me know in the comments down below, and I will send you a link to that video. And the last number of questions, the first one coming from Marcus Ronin, I should say. And you want to know, who do I think would win in a fight between Krauser or Nomak? I'm willing to guess that you think that you're talking about Nomak from Blade 2. So between those two, I think Krauser would probably be able to overwhelm Nomak. It would be a pretty good fight, but I think Krauser would win. Next question comes from Silver Shadow 2099. And you want to know, if I got stuck in a Final Fantasy franchise forever, and I could choose what game it would be, what would I pick and what would I do when I got there? Okay, so basically you're asking which Final Fantasy game would I want to be stuck in and what would I do? Without question, I would like to be stuck in Final Fantasy X's World of Spira, but only after the calm has arrived. I don't think I would want to live in Spira when Sin is, you know, flying around, blowing or killing people. What would I do when I'm in Spira? I would just do a lot of traveling. I mean, I would go to Luca to watch some Blitzball. I would go visit Mount Gagazet to go visit the Ronsos. Definitely visit Bevelle, the Calmlands, the ruins of Zanarkand, the Sade, Kilika. Go on the Mihan Road. Visit the Moonflow. I mean, Spira is it's just a beautiful place to visit. I mean, there's just all sorts of sites I would want to check out. And heck, I might even run into my occasional fiends and get a good workout. So yeah, I would definitely pick Final Fantasy X. And the last question of the episode comes from Cassius Buxley. And he wants to know, what is the one thing I didn't like about Prototype? I just didn't like the story all that much. I thought the gameplay was a little bit too free flow, but if there's one thing I just wasn't a big fan of, was just the story. I mean, it led into Prototype 2 and I can't even remember much about it. So that's probably the one thing about Prototype I just wasn't a big fan of. And with that, those are all the questions that you guys sent in for this extensive episode of the People's Questions. I'd like to thank all of you guys for making this episode possible. If you guys have any more questions you would like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me before next Wednesday, before I start filming the next episode. And before I finish this closing, please keep your eye out over the next few hours for a second very important channel update video, which really requires your guys' feedback because it's super important. So keep your eyes out for that video. So with that out of the way, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.